So what have you found interesting about the book publishing industry as opposed to the film industry, which I assume you know better?
Well, what kind of shocks me is how similar it is in certain ways. But you know what? I want to be very, very careful not to say anything negative. So let's just say it's always an eye-opener, when one enters any kind of new profession. And there are good things and bad things. On the whole, I'm thrilled with, I'm certainly thrilled with the reception that my book has received online. I'm thrilled with the efforts that my publisher has made to promote it. But, once you're inside any system, if you have expectations, you're going to be disappointed in certain ways.
So where does publishing this novel fit in your life's highlights? Is it top 5?
I'm sorry, where does it fit in my life? Then what did you say?
Your life's highlights? Would you say it's in the top 5?
Oh, definitely. I have to say, I've always aspired to be a novelist, and when I was a kid, being a novelist had a different meaning than it has today, because people read a lot more than they do today, I think. But for me, it's the same thing. It's the experience that I always wanted, which is the experience of sharing my vision with others. I'm not going to say it's complete fulfillment of all my dreams, but I feel like I've stepped into a world that I always wanted to be in. So
sorry. Go ahead.
The issue is to keep going and to be able to write my second novel and others. Of course.
I've often heard the writing advice, think visually. This is a very visual book.
I do think visually, not because anyone gave me that advice. And in fact, they talk about that, and a lot of people think that, screenwriters have to think visually, but in fact, it's kind of discouraged in a way. I mean, when you're writing a screenplay, you have to know where your camera is looking for every shot, or for every scene at least. More or less, you have to have an idea of it. But these days, directors discourage any specific information about, what the camera's doing, or what people are wearing, or what's in the room, because there's a wardrobe person, there's a set decorator, there are all these people, production designer, who take care of that stuff, and you don't want to, rob them of their function. So one of the great pleasures of getting back to novel writing is that I'm allowing myself to visualize and to enter that world fully. I don't feel like I'm just sending out telegraph messages to the director.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, I feel, at a certain point, you feel like you're just kind of living in the world of the novel and reporting. I'm not saying that, again, of course, there's that conscious, deliberate, methodical part of it, but there's another level on which you're just kind of reporting what you're experiencing as you wend your way through the storytelling process. So I do a lot of, lying down and just visualizing scenes.
What have you found most interesting? Yeah, what have you found most interesting about the way people react to your book?
Well, I'm just thrilled with the response I've gotten from bloggers and reviewers. I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. I guess I'm very interested in the fact that one of the things that I'll be frank with you about, one of the things that kind of has shocked me a little about the publishing industry, and it has to do with what you're asking about now also, is, that the marketplace is divided into sectors. So you've got the historical fiction market, you've got, the literary fiction market, the mystery market, whatever. And this historical fiction community has, I think, really let me in with open arms and embraced me, and it's very, very, very surprising and pleasant. I'm not used to being treated that way by anybody. And I'm trying to be polite and civil and nice and affectionate and return, everything that I'm getting as much as possible.
Yeah. So how have you found the process of writing a blog?
My my editor asked me, or maybe it was a publicist, asked me to start writing a blog a couple months before the book came out, and to continue writing the blog, for a month or so after it came out. I enjoyed it a lot, but I've slowed down now, and I'm just going to, put stuff there when I feel like it. I can't make it my my daily occupation. I don't have what you have, which is just, a fascination with that particular medium. But it is really nice to be able to just put any old thoughts you have right up there for the world to look at. That is very cool. Without any... Yeah.
What is your relationship to Judaism? I have a passionate curiosity about both the history of Judaism as an identity, and about the history of Jewish thought, and about the history of Jewish belief. I guess that would be my answer. It's more than a passionate curiosity, it's a passionate involvement. And also there's a little bit of a typical Jewish kind of defensive component to it, which is that, there's a feeling that we've always been a beleaguered minority, and the tradition has to be maintained and passed on. That's also part of that feeling. And that's part of the reason I wrote this book, because it's not. I don't feel this book is aimed at Jews, and I don't feel it's only about the Jewish condition. But I'm very interested in the ways the different monotheistic faiths have related to each other through history, and frankly, looking at that from a Jewish perspective. One of the wonderful things that happened, to get back to your previous question, is that I've just been thrilled by the response I've gotten from non-Jews, who are so open and curious, open to my perspective on this era that I've written about, and curious about it, and not defensive. I'm thrilled with that. I assume there aren't many Jews around you. I think you live on a farm now?
No, I live, it's not a farm. It's a, I sometimes wish it were a farm, but it's only 6 miles from Pittsburgh. It's the first, I guess you could say, suburban development in this area. So it's like a little village, really. I can walk 1 block and have little coffee shops and restaurants, and an old-time movie theater and all kinds of things. So it's like a little village, but that's close enough to all the amenities of a fairly important city.
What's been the closest in your life to the life you describe in this book?
Well, I identified most. Well, to some extent, I identify with all the characters. I very much identify with Columbus when I was writing the book, because he is a guy with this crazy mission that no one can quite understand. Although the book, I see it as a process of Louis de Sandenfeld kind of buying into Columbus's vision. But I felt like my mission, to just kind of go out and do what I had always wanted to do, and let the chips fall where they may. I identified with Columbus a lot, even though I thought he was kind of nuts. I think I'm kind of nuts. And then, but to some extent, of course, I identified tremendously with all the characters. Louis de Sandenfeld I see as a prototype of modern man, because he's a man who has to navigate between different identities and different belief systems, which was very unusual in the Middle Ages. It was just starting to happen a lot, of course, with the Marranos.
Was there any dramatic difference between being a Jew in the various places you've lived, being a Jew in Beverly Hills versus being a Jew in Pittsburgh versus being a Jew in France?
Very much. I told you I don't really relate very well to the culture of Beverly Hills and generally of Los Angeles. I think